Why do people get angry when the term feminism is used? Today we'll be speaking with Biola Alabi and we'll be looking at feminism from a different angle. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, good. So today we're going to talk about feminism, right? And the several different aspects of feminism. Now, whenever I go out to buy anything with a unified price, like for example a recharge card, I always ensure that I buy it from a woman as my own little way of contributing to women empowerment. Would you say that qualifies me as a feminist?
I believe feminism is something you define for yourself.
Okay.
And it has to be meaningful for you, and it has to be meaningful about the contribution you're making to the narrative. I don't think it's like one thing. I think it's a continuum of a narrative of saying, what is it that I'm contributing to this conversation that is changing and impacting positively on women and their lives and what they do. And I think this is where a man can be a feminist. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're making a contribution, a positive contribution to the narrative. And you're changing the narrative, you're changing the way we've traditionally thought about women and their role in society. I think these are feminist. And so for me, I think it's a wider, and it's not a single definition. So okay. Yes, congratulations.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so I could, based on my own description of the word,
own definition,
I could be, okay, fair enough. Now, whenever the word feminism comes up, most people always look at it in the context of marriage, right? So people think that, okay, women want to take over the positions of their husbands, and then the argument becomes a to cook or not to cook for your husband movement, right? So can you define, at least based on your own individual interpretation of the word, what feminism actually means?
Feminism for me means it's really about being empowered to make decisions that impact yourself and your family and others. And having that power, feeling that you actually are, you have the power to make some decisions. I think the problem that we have is a lot of women don't feel empowered. And even when we say the word woman empowerment, what does that really mean? Because sometimes some of the things we're telling women to do could actually be disempowering if it's not in the right environment, if it's not in the right culture. So I'm very sensitive about just going to anywhere in the world and saying woman empowerment. I think it has to be contextualized. So for me, really feminism is all about my contribution to the world. How am I making a difference in this world? And how am I impacting on young women and leaving a legacy for young women? So for me, it's not really about cooking or not cooking for my husband. Okay. I'll cook for anyone. I mean, that's such a narrow way of like defining it. People, if you come to my house, I'll cook for you. So that really isn't like a description. That's not a definition of feminism. But I think what it is that women having the opportunity, and I think men creating an environment where they're working with women to create these opportunities. There is really no reason why a woman and a man should do the same job and not get paid the same wage. I, as a female executive, I travel just as much as a man. I sacrifice just as much as a man. And because I'm a woman, you're telling me that I shouldn't get paid the same thing, even though we're putting in the same work. This is where I have a problem. And so I think for me, really feminism is not about women trying to be men. It's about recognizing the contribution women are making and making sure that we all are living sort of within the confines of fairness. I feel like it's like the most basic human value, which is fair. Let's be fair to each other. And I think that what's exciting for me is that this is changing in a lot of places, in the workplace. Men are realizing that we also have daughters, and I think that's really what we have to do is engage and relate to people on common grounds, and I think that's the conversation that is happening. I think it's a positive movement. I also think it's really important to understand when you're telling people that, oh, you're now empowered, so go out and do this. You have to give people the right skills and the right tools, and also the right language. I mean, I did some work around parents and children when I was in my other life in media, and parents said we want to have these conversations with our children, but the actual problem is we don't even know how to start that conversation. So you're telling me to talk to my kids about sex education, but I need the conversation starters and the tools, and I think that's really where it's such an easy, it's a cop out to say to cook or not to cook. So for me, it's a wider range of what we're doing, and really it's based on fairness and what that means. And giving us a voice at the table.
And I totally agree with you. I think the conversation is changing gradually. But the thing is, even at that, whenever the word feminism, women liberation, women empowerment, or any kind of freedom is given to women, there's still a reaction that comes up with negative responses, in some cases violent reactions. I mean, we see it on Twitter a little bit, when people get really aggressive. And for me, and it comes from men and even women. And then my question usually is, what are people scared of? Like, why are people afraid of women being free? Why are people afraid of women being liberated? What are people actually scared of? What do you think people are scared of?
The greatness that women hold. It's just really that simple. It's just that, oh my God, this world could be so much better, and people would really realize how incompetent we are, and so let's just sort of like close it down. Let's just shut it down. Otherwise, why else would people do things? Like, people are afraid. People are afraid of the unknown. People don't really understand. People don't like to change, and I think when you start to introduce issues around fairness, you start to gender equity, people are like, what does that really mean? And also people think, this wasn't that important to my mom, why is it important now? Why can't you just sit there and just be?
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to do this? And I think that it's the same way when you look at some of the things that our forefathers did. So let's say the killing of twins. It had to come a time where people said, actually, this is not a curse, this is not an abomination, this is a blessing. And now it's transformed into being a blessing. I think this is sort of the journey that a lot of things have to, I mean, slavery was okay one time.
Yeah, true.
Slavery's not okay today.
True.
Still happens, but it's not okay. Like, people can walk up to you and say, is slavery okay? And you don't have to think about it. It's like, no. It's the same way that gender equity, gender empowerment is going to become. There is going to come a time where, hopefully in the near future, men and women are going to say, well, why wouldn't you? Like, how could this have been an issue? Like, how did this even become, like, I can't believe these people were so stupid. They actually made this an issue. And I think that time is coming. And I think the only way that happens is through agitation. And now that agitation is happening, and it's great that it's not settling, it's continuing. So I think it's great that there are people on both sides, and that's how we come to a happy medium.
Okay, speaking of agitation, we've seen the agitation with the GO bill that was supposed to promote equality, that was struck out by the Nigerian Senate based on religious and traditional beliefs.
Yes.
Now there's this thing about equality is not African tradition. Equality is not African tradition. What is African tradition? You know, I'm like, what is, and how do we protect women's rights at the feet of the almighty African tradition, really?
So I totally disagree with the concept that certain things are not African.
Okay.
I think not being open is what is not African.
Okay.
Because you could say Christianity is not African.
Yeah.
You can say Islam is not African. But we've embraced it, we've adapted it, we've incorporated it into our lives. So for me, I feel that it's okay to say it, but it's not true. There is nothing that is un-African or that is more African than being open and being adaptable. It is a law of human beings. One of the things that's very African is actually sharing responsibility of the home. From the beginning, men and women in Africa have always shared responsibility. So this idea that, I mean, just because we don't always say, okay, the women's roles are this and the men's roles are this, it is still about sharing responsibility and negotiating that responsibility. Who does what and how you do it and who does this. And sort of like, okay, well, if we have these crops, who's going to go and sell it? Who's going to till the ground to make sure that this happens? So these negotiations, these social contracts are as African as they come. So engage it in a different type of social contract, changing the social network or discussion that we have about what is African is the only thing that is truly African, is the fact that we can actually have those conversations. And the fact that we're adaptable. I mean, we're not a tree. We have to be able to change.
Like, I know, and as somebody said, I mean, I can't remember who made that statement though. It was like, people make culture. Culture doesn't make people.
Exactly.
So we have to be able to transcend. Yes. And as you said, we pick and choose. So everyone picks the one that's ideal for them. And part of the agitation was really that, look, if we have to go down to tradition, the Bible is not the African tradition.
Yes.
So you can't quote the Bible
Yes.
at the same time say, wait, hang on, this is not African.
Yes.
The Bible is not
Yes.
is not African. So hopefully the conversations continue. Now you've spoken about the agitation. Where does one draw balance between agitating for equal rights and being seen as an angry feminist? Because you're one of those who, you've not only embraced feminism, you also actually include it on your profile, but you embrace it with such grace. You're not seen as this angry,
I get angry. Don't get it twisted. I get angry. I get angry about the injustice that women face every day. I get angry about that. Am I in a perpetual state of anger? Of course not. But I do get angry when I see injustice. I get angry when people don't understand the importance of providing the same protection for women that men have. I get angry when people really do not respect equal pay. I get angry at those things. Do I also, on the other side, see some of the things that are happening, some of the opportunities, some of the advantages we're able to take as women, and the fact that I've had an amazing family that have supported me, I've had a limitless world of opportunities. Of course, those are things that I love and I love to see more of, and I feel that I have a responsibility to make sure those things happen. I think the idea of angry feminists, I think some people are angry just about life. I mean, some people wake up every day and that is their thing. So I think that the angry feminist is once again shorthand for saying we don't like her, and also a very easy way. No, it's a very easy way for people to dismiss you. It's a very easy way for people to dismiss you. And what I don't like is when people use that as a cop-out. So for me, what I like to say is it is okay to be angry about things. It's okay to be infuriated by injustice. It is important to then be able to communicate that anger and think about what is your platform to communicate that anger. You're using this as your platform to communicate that anger. Some people write to communicate their anger. Some people go out on the street and they don't care if it's just them on the street saying this is not fair. So I think that it is a word of the, I actually think angry feminist is a word of the past.
Okay.
And I really hope that it stays in the past. I think that we have situations that anger us, and I think we should stay agitated and angry about those things. But I think going forward, what we need to do is always also figure out what our platform is for change. And it doesn't always have to look the way we think it needs to look. It could literally be about providing opportunities for women.
Where do we draw the line between giving a woman a position because she's a woman and giving her a position because she's competent?
Trust me, there are shareholders in a company, there are fiduciary duties, there are directors of a company. No one appoints a woman a CEO if she's not qualified. Your shareholders will not allow that to happen. It's just not going to happen. I mean, if you own shares in a company, you're not going to allow them to appoint someone off the street just because she's a woman. What we're saying is create enough of opportunities so that women are actually qualified for those opportunities, so that when a woman goes on maternity leave, she's not losing her job, she's not losing her position. Yes, you might provide another position for her, but how do we continue to make sure that she's on the same trajectory as male colleagues? How do we make sure that women and men are having very similar conversations when it comes around to socialization in the workplace, when it comes around to creating opportunities, when it comes around to even being entrepreneurs? How is it that you get a male entrepreneur to stand up and say, we are going to build the biggest company in the world? What do we need to tell women so that women can get up and say the same statement and feel confident? That's really what we're talking about here. How do we build a more inclusive society? How do we build a more confident society that understands that we both have more to lose here than if we don't include everyone?
Okay, that's good. Now there's the school of thought that women want to have their cake and eat it, which is where feminism ends and chivalry starts. Because one minute we say we're equal, and the next minute you want a man to hold out the door for you, you want him to pull out the chair for you, carry the heavy stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Feminism and chivalry. What really is equality?
I almost feel once again that this feels very insecure. It feels like a very insecure thing for someone to bring up. I don't believe that because of equality we shouldn't have manners, and I don't believe that because of equality we shouldn't have certain expectations. I think that it's important. There are certain jobs that I personally wouldn't do just because I physically don't believe that I can physically do them. There are some jobs that women are better at. There are some jobs men are better at. But there are some jobs that it doesn't really matter who you are. I don't think those things have anything to do with you opening the door for me. I don't also think that, me saying that I'm going to make dinner tonight has anything to do with the fact that I still want to go into the boardroom and my voice be heard. I believe that those things are totally unrelated and separate. And if you don't want to open the door for me, that's fine. I can open the. Do you know how many times I have to open the door myself? I mean, it's really not a big deal. But if you're there and you do it, it is appreciated. It is not expected. It is appreciated. And I think it should be the same way if a woman comes home from a long day of work and you come home from a long day of work and she gets in the kitchen and cooks. It should be appreciated, not expected. It shouldn't be that you automatically go pick up the newspaper and she jumps in the kitchen. I think that's the type of conversation we should be having, not that you want to have your cake and eat it too. I feel like
like really, are we really talking about this?
I mean, and really, to be honest with you, what's the big deal about all these things? The real big deal is empowering women and empowering your daughters, your wives, your sisters to be able to hold their head up and say, look, I come to the table, I bring this contribution to the table, and for that I want to be recognized, I want to be appreciated, I want to be compensated.
Okay, now I'll just ask you a few questions on leadership. Now,
Okay.
You're the first managing director I know who made an entire continent have a panic attack at the sign of a resignation.
I love that.
Proving to me that you're a good leader. As someone who has had that privilege of good leadership, what would you say are the key tenets of great leadership, most especially in a continent like Africa, where what we have is mainly rulership and not leadership?
Number one, I think what has to be evident to people is that you care. People want you to care about what you're doing, what you're building together. They want you to care about them. And once people know that you care, I think that's almost some of the basis of that you can build on. People know that, okay, you care about the work we're doing here. You believe in what we're doing here. And you care about me as a human being. You make sure that I'm treated fairly. And I think those are some of the basic things that we needed to sort of put in place from a leadership perspective. The other thing was people like to be recognized for the work they're doing, the contribution they're making. And if you provide enough opportunities for people, they will continue to do amazing things. And for me, that was really one of the things that I learned. I learned throughout my career is that when people do great things, recognize them. Never take advantage of great people. People build companies. You could have all the equipment you want today. You could have the best technology. If you don't have the right people, you can't build anything. And I think for me, those were some of the things that I always kept in mind as I was building teams across the continent. I mean, we had teams in South Africa, we had a team in Kenya, we had a team in Nigeria. And I was building teams across the continent, really finding the right people, finding people that I felt were very passionate about what we were doing, and people that understood the importance of never taking credit for other people's work. And if you took credit for people's work, I knew. I mean, you know, like, because you know people's limitations, you know people's strength. And so if someone just walked into my office and said, oh, look what I did today, I'm like, oh, you and your team did a great job, that's awesome. Who on the team actually led this? And that person would take a step back. I never came at you and said, oh, you're taking credit for this. I'm like, who on the team led this? Because people know, they know themselves, and they're like, oh, well, actually, this person came to the table. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Next time, please make sure I say hi to the person. And so for me, as a leader, these were lessons I had to learn. I had to learn how to lead. I mean, there are some people that they say are born leaders. I would love to meet them. Every leader that I know that is successful has had to learn how to lead, and I had to learn.
Okay, that's good. Now, as someone who moved from being the head of a large corporate to set up a startup, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to take that leap?
I think if you want to take that leap, you have to really understand your strengths. You have to understand your weaknesses. You have to find the right people to compensate those things. You have to build the right team, which is basically finding people that you trust and they trust you. And you're basically, because you're on a ledge. When you're going to entrepreneurship, you're on a ledge. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have people that trust that there's a next step to this ledge, or it will happen. And either we will levitate or we will fall. But I mean, you have to have that type of, that's the type of things you have to build and have to have in mind. When it comes to should people take the leap, I think if you're passionate enough about what you're doing, if you believe in yourself, you should take the leap. I also believe that there are also great opportunities to build amazing careers in corporations. Mm-hmm. I have always said that entrepreneurship is for everyone, but it doesn't have to always be in the single, it's not a single definition of, yes. You can be an entrepreneur in a company, which is what I was. I was an entrepreneur working in a large corporation. I was building across the continent amazing and different types of businesses, which is really what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about building businesses and working with people. And I had an amazing opportunity to do that. And then I also had an amazing opportunity to do it in a creative/commercial industry. So those are the things I always tell people, is that you don't always have to be out there on your own to be an entrepreneur. You could be out there working with other people to be an entrepreneur. You could be working in a company and be an entrepreneur. And I think this is really what's important. So as long as you feel comfortable going out there alone, you should go. But if you really feel that you can build something inside a big thing, why not? I mean, if you're a product manager at Google, imagine how big your company is within Google. So I think it's exciting, but I think it also has to be right for you, and it has to be the right time. I think some people also feel like, if I'm not an entrepreneur at 25, I can never be an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of the front pages of magazines say that now, but that's not true. Most successful entrepreneurs actually start their businesses in their 40s because they have a lot of experience, they've worked in different organizations, they have huge networks of people that they can tap into, and it always is a good start to build a business.
Now, how do you stay grounded? I remember meeting you several months ago, and you don't take yourself seriously. Like because I just thought, oh my goodness, this is Biola Alabi, she's a big deal, but you just, you were so open, and in fact, you even shared a bit of weakness with me, and I'm like, okay, I should be cloned or something, like I can't be having a conversation with the same person. Like, how do you actually stay grounded in the midst of all of the accolades and the awards and being the ultimate power broker, quote unquote? How do you stay grounded, really?
I think a lot of it comes from how you were raised and your family and just sort of the fact that it's just me. I'm me, and I love doing what I do. I love having these amazing experiences. I love meeting new people. But at the end of the day, so what? Like, who am I? Like, I'm just another person just trying to make my way in the world and really on this amazing journey. So I really don't take myself seriously. I don't sit there and go, oh my God, it's me. I think that's really important. I think humility is part of our culture, and I think it's something that we're born with, really. It's not everyone can be Donald Trump, so all the rest of us have to be ourselves. But regarding staying grounded, staying humble, my parents are probably the most instrumental people in my life when it comes to that. We've never taken ourselves seriously. I've never taken myself that seriously, because I really believe that we're all on a journey, and you just don't know what's happening with people on that journey. And so even when people aren't what I expect, I still understand the fact that their journey is taking them probably somewhere different, and mine is going to take me somewhere different. And therefore, whenever I meet people and I can share a part of who I am with them, and really at the end of the day, I'm just me. There's nothing that special. It's like you have had these amazing opportunities and you've been able to take advantage of them. That doesn't change who you are. That doesn't make you any different from the other person. We all have different opportunities that come our way. And I think that some of us are very lucky to understand that. I think sometimes some people are like, it's just all they're doing. But it is a blessing to be able to have these opportunities, and I'm very grateful. And I really don't take it more than that. And I think culturally, we're humble people.
Okay. I'll take your word for that. What scares you?
What scares me? I truly believe you are what you contribute to this world. You are the change that you make. And I think what scares me is not making a full contribution. That's probably what's, like, I always ask myself, can you be doing more? And I think that's probably one of the scariest things is like, are you doing enough? Like, is this enough? Should you be okay with this? Or if you have capacity to do more, can you do more? And so I think that's probably it. And probably other things is probably thinking about how, and I think for me that spreads into Nigeria, like thinking about how the biggest thing we have is potential, and us not living up to that potential. And I think having lived through so many different eras in Nigeria, that is scary, because you feel like we're just almost there, and we keep on going not there. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. But
we're moving. Should we say we're moving? Like we're not still. Like there's some kind of motion.
Yes. There's some movement, but we're definitely not where we need to be. So I think those things probably.
Now, the Chinese are good at processes.
Yes.
The Indians at IT. The Japanese at robotics. What would you say Nigerians are good at, except resilience in adversity?
You can't say that. I think Nigerians are amazing at creating things from not much. And I think that that comes really down to our creativity. And I think Nigerians are amazing storytellers. If I go downstairs right now and I say I want to buy this cup, and the woman there says the cup is $5, 5 naira, and I say, oh well, 5 naira is too much. She will tell me the story of why 5 naira is actually not enough.
That's so true.
And she will tell me how it is affected by FX, it is affected by the price of oil. And sometimes I get so carried away by listening to these stories that I'm like, wow, that was a good story. But hey, how much is this cup anyway? So we get back to where we're going. But I think that we're amazing storytellers. I think that is an amazing communication tool, because one of the things that people do remember is the stories you tell them. So even if you're in the boardroom, I always tell people communicate through stories. If whatever you're doing, if you're a salesperson, the best salespeople communicate through stories. They'll tell you a story that will stay with you. And I think that's the thing. And that's the thing about the best storytellers. I'm going to say this and then sort of end the thing about storytellers. So I was at the airport a couple of weeks ago in London. And this gentleman came up to me to say that he had missed it was Nigerian, he had missed his flight. Because he had missed his flight, he now has to take this other flight. Like, basically he needed $200 to be able to get on the plane. And it wasn't the flight I was going to be on.
Okay.
And so the way he kept to telling this story, part of me just was like, I think I'm going to give him $200. Like, I told myself that I think I'm actually going to do this. And I think it's just because it's a good story. I don't believe you, but I'm going to give you something because you've just told me.
You put in some serious effort.
It's a good story, and I don't know how many people are going to give you $200 today, but here's my contribution to this story. And so, I mean, he was a great communicator in that moment. I mean, he communicated that he was in dire need, and I felt the need to help. And I think this to me, and by the way, I said, but, because he's like, you can take my computer. I was like, what am I going to do with your computer? Of course, he knows I'm not going to take his computer. And so I was like, okay, well, here's $200 and here's my card. If you feel the need to pay me back here. I've not heard from him. Of course, I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I mean, what I'm saying is that there are amazing ways of communicating and telling stories. And I think that this is something that we need to continue to channel, and we need to continue to find better ways of using our storytelling. And that doesn't mean that you have to now go write a book, but what it is you need to harness your ability to tell stories and do that in the boardroom. I think we do it very well in religious settings. I think that we are amazing at doing this, and this is why Nigerian pastors are doing very well globally. I mean, one of the biggest churches in Poland is run by a Nigerian pastor, is led by a Nigerian pastor. And I think because stories connect with humans, and humans want to connect with people. And I think this is really where we should do this everywhere we go. If it's on the farm, in the churches, in the schools, teachers need to learn how to tell more stories so that children will learn. Children will always remember great stories.
Finally, what does success mean to you?
I mean, just like I said, I really believe that you are what you contribute. So for me, it's really about making a contribution, making a bigger contribution, which is why I really started Grooming for Greatness. Grooming for Greatness is a foundation that works with young people on leadership, mentorship, really helping people understand and navigate sometimes the so opaque world of young youth and growing when you're young and trying to find your way. And so Grooming for Greatness works with young people across Nigeria, and we're hoping to expand and continue to do our work. So for me, it's really about leadership and mentorship, how we mentor other people. So really, what is it that we're contributing to the world?
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you
And
very
this
much.
is an amazing platform.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yay! I'm glad you laughed at that question.
Which one?
The one about her making the entire country have a panic attack.